Okay, we probably should start, and people will be joining. Again, good morning, and we're so happy to start with one of the first sessions of our Peace Week annual, not half annual Peace Week, semi-annual Peace Week. And this particular session is devoted to the work which a big team from George Mason, from Carter School is involved in. It's a project with the State Department on contact theory. How we can improve contact theory and empower practitioners across the globe who use contact theory, who engage different groups in peace building activities, how we can provide knowledge, advice, and lessons learned to make our contact theory programs better and more effective. So the team, let's introduce the team. I'm a director of the project, principal investigator on this project, Karina Korestelina. I'm professor at Carter School, and I'm social psychologist. So I work with contact theory for multiple years, but finally we have got this opportunity to actually reassess it and apply it in a different way. We have another professor on team, Susan. Would you say, introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm happy to be here, and thank you all for coming, and I look forward to being part of the discussion.
Thank you, and we have several PhD students. Unfortunately, one of our PhD students who actually was behind all this application work was actively with me and Susan to apply for that, and was the major force behind this application and presentation we will have today. Mike Switgard, he is not here today because he is working actually in Tunisia. But we also have two other our students who were working very actively and continue working on the project. Beltina.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Beltina Geloshi, and I'm a PhD candidate at the Carter School at George Mason University.
Thank you. Beltina now a new manager, and Mike is left from as a manager. And Natia.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Natia Changpatadze. I'm also a PhD candidate at Carter School, and I'm happy to join the discussion here today.
And one more, last but not least, Hiro. Maybe she could not have, but
muted. Yeah, I think she's muted.
Yeah, it's okay. So how we will do today's session, today, I will present the results of our first stage, which is a review of the literature on contact theory. We were able to go much far beyond our usual literature on contact theory and brought a lot of additional theoretical framework from social psychology, from practice of conflict resolution into that. So you will see today pretty wide variety of theories which contribute to success of contact theory from our perspective, and you will see a lot of advantages which already exist in theory and some theoretical frameworks, but not always applied in practice. So our next step for this project, which we are doing now, and our discussant who will be speaking today will also talk about the second stage. We will see how these particular theories are actually applied or used or not used in practice. So let me start sharing PowerPoint. So how we define contact? We define is really a continuum of different forms of bringing people together, from short meeting, encountering the media, to short standing productive collaboration. So, but the most important is the aims. because they can differ from project partnership to deep relationship building, from learning about others to working together towards social change. But the most important idea is that we bring people together from different groups who didn't have opportunity to work together or had very limited opportunity to work together, and create a new social change, new social possibility. So the presentation today, which we will go with you together, will represent different forms, different processes, inclusion of emotions, categories, and conditions, for 5 major purposes: for creating resilience, for change collective actions, polarization, reduction of prejudice, and social cohesion. And we also will be speaking about networks and scaling up. So first of all, what forms of contact are available? And we will start with the very first contact, which not always come into mind immediately when we speak about contact. It's indirect contact. So it's there are 3 major forms of it, and one of them is imagined contact. Then people just imagine that they collaborate with others or interact with others or invite somebody for the dinner. It sounds like the people just imagine, but research shows that just imagining contact really can make a big difference, especially in situations that there are no any connection during very violent events. Also, we see extended contact, vicarious contact, when positive, very important when people see that other people have positive intergroup relations, for example, through media, or learn that other people have friendships. Why they great? Because it can be implemented on a very big scale. And they also can be scripted, which is very important, which we can actually measure them. And they are less obstructive in situations of violence, situations when groups do not work together. They prepare people for future direct contact. And this is very important. And unfortunately, not a lot of programs use this very interesting form of contact because anyway, it plays significant role in producing new social norms in favor of social tolerance, and also improve intergroup relations. So we also speaking about in-person contact can be situational and deep. Situational could be simple contact with immigrants or different minorities, and research shows that actually this effect, positive effect, depends on the type of out-group minority group. It's worked very well until percentage of group it's lower than 20-21%. As soon the percentage of minority become higher, then this effect doesn't work because of situation of threat is created. But we also were mostly interested in deep contact. Then people create a mutual learning in safe spaces, shared experiences, repeated contact over multiple settings. We're also speaking about acquaintance potential, where people create new friendships which lasted for long and bring new people toward the contact. And these intergroup friendships can create deeper networks, which we also will be speaking. Also very interesting research here that perception of justice should really be considered as a very important variable, because there are differences between just a friend or a just friend. And a just friend, especially if we speak about friendship between majority and minority, and we will be speaking about it deeper, more in details today, it's very important that the idea of justice and equality are brought into friendship, recognized. And finally, online contact. there are a lot of COVID, of course, brought a lot of more research into contact theory about online contact, but they existed before. So what is important, because when people have a time difference or physical distance, online contacts work the best. It's really save money for programs which do not have a lot of financial support, but still can produce opportunity for people to work together. It's also reduce anxiety, make people more comfortable to speak to each other, and also reduce effects of power and hierarchy between people, because everyone has the same representation on the screen. Also, if it's just text-based, and reduce anxiety even more, because in this situation, people have a time to respect other text, to address and produce their own text. And of course, it depends on the topic of discussion. So the idea which we promote here, based on literature review, is gradual model. Then program progress from text interaction to online video meeting, and then to indirect contact and face-to-face interaction. So it's very important to be aware and combine different forms of contact. Next, very important point is condition for optimal contact. Starting from early research, even before the Allport research on contact, we found that there are multiple conditions, but 4 of them still become the most important or classic approach to it. We're speaking about pleasant contact, equal status, cooperation and common goals, and support by institutional authority. And we analyze different approaches, different research. There are a lot of meta studies which analyze which conditions are more important. And the major conclusion is that it's great to have all of them, but they are not extremely necessary. There are some effective contacts which use only 1 or 2 of these conditions. But what was really interesting, what we found, that people perceive and interpret conditions and situation in different ways, especially majority and minorities, especially in situation of violence, in situation of inequality and injustice. Conditions of equal status or cooperation can perceive very differently. It can be perceived as paternalized, or it can be perceived as non-inclusive, and so on. So it's very important to understand this constructivist approach to conditions, which were not represented in the classic research of Allport and a lot of meta-studies by Pettigrew and others. Next, we analyzed different ways of power dynamics and dialogues, which are important processes, but also what mechanisms are available to make contact theory more effective. And I will go through all of them very quickly. First of all, power dynamics. It's a huge part of the literature really discuss how power dynamics impact the effectiveness of contact. Contact different for majority and minority, because group status, one of the major moderating variables in examining contact. What research shows that members of advantage group tend to prefer emphasizing commonalities between groups, and they usually try to avoid discussing power differences, but it's completely opposite for disadvantaged group. And contact should be highlight the idea of legitimacy or absence of legitimacy of power asymmetry, and should mitigate the threat of instability and change. What happens that in many cases, majority groups, and they feel threat to their status, they distance from contact. They don't want to engage into contact. And research shows that working together to achieve mutual gains, it's working better than just improving position of minority, because in this way you have more inclusion of majority in this particular context, and it's become more effective. And of course, we suggest utilizing multiple meanings of power: power to, power with, power through, which are powers, and of course collaborative powers, which provide opportunity for people to work more in concert, but also work together toward achieving particular goal. Another process, very important process, which of course is the key for contact, is dialogue. So there are again a lot of research specifically how to make contact more effective through dialogues. And one approach is long-term dialogue groups, first creating specific friendship from mutual employment, helpfulness, shared commitment, but then it should enhance learning from prior experiences of interaction. So first basically creating a positive enjoyment of interaction, and then people start understanding stories of each other. Another approach for stage dialogues, which first create particular social norms of interaction that share similarities, then stressing differences and creating new group identity. Nevertheless, also multiple shorter contacts also can contribute to significant attitude change over time. Mechanisms, which is very important, what particular mechanisms are effective based on academic research. One mechanism is storytelling, understanding, because it gives opportunity people to understand narratives of other people, get really more attention into suffering and emotions of out groups. But it also creates this moral inclusion, especially in situation of majority-minority or in situation of asymmetrical conflict, and encourage participation in social actions of people. Another mechanism is perspective taking. Why it's important? Because people not just listening to the stories, but they take perspective of the other people, and it's increase willingness of people to engage in conflict, reduce stereotypes, prejudice, and also increase positive attitudes and emotions. But also what is important that it improves satisfaction with interactions, and people shift their behavior toward more cross-cutting relationship with other people and willingness to participate in contact. Self-disclosure, it's another very interesting mechanism, because it's self-disclosure and then people tell very personal stories or disclosure their emotions, disclosure moments of despair or moments of joy, something which is very, very personal. It's reveal meaningful aspects of themselves through intergroup exchanges. And what is important is that learning about outgroup member and reflecting of outgroup members helping to bring groups together. And it's have very positive effect of intergroup relations, because it's more rewarding and giving people more opportunities for emotional contacts, which create very strong connection between groups. Another very interesting mechanism is gateway groups. A lot of research actually done, but again, as we will see, it's not usually used in practice. Who are gateway groups? Usually individual which associated with multiple social groups at the same time. For example, black, white, biracial people. In Israeli-Palestinian context, it's Arab citizens of Israel. Or in Western Balkans, Serbian Bosniaks, and this research done on the specific groups. what happens, because they share features of both groups and they perceive as insiders, but both in-group and out-group. And what happens that they help other people to be potentially expanding their own personality, ability to cross across the boundary and engage with other people, and they become the key used to discard or at least lower social boundary between groups. So, and there are research shows that they really work very well as facilitators of intergroup contact. Empathy, not surprisingly, it's a very important mediator. And it's also very important for intergroup positivity and political tolerance. Another very important mechanism is a threat reduction. Here we brought a lot of literature from social psychology, because context theory literature doesn't speak about it, but a lot of them mention threat is important, threat reduce effectiveness. So threat reduction does help create new positive experience, because how it's done from increased knowledge about history and tradition of our group, creating empathy, creating some stable and predictable contact, because people are afraid to have a connection to the contact and they see other group as threatening for them. Perceive group similarities, mutual benefits. There are a lot of ways how threat can be used to increase contact. And finally, social norms is one of the key mechanisms, because it's a help define behaviors. A lot of new research, again, we brought a lot of research from social psychology that shows that attitudinal change does not necessarily lead to behavioral change. However, change in social norms have a stronger impact on behavior. So bringing intergroup norms regarding behaviors and shift intergroup norms and how you cooperate with other people, work with other groups, can be very important part of reduction prejudice and improving particular contact. And trust, we see it as a very important part, how you build it through self-disclosure, which I already discussed, through reassurance, building on small cooperative gestures leading to a greater cooperation, create reciprocity of positive engagements, and observing successful cooperation across group lines. Another one mechanism is universalism, which help to incorporate value of tolerance and protection of all people, as well as nature too. And it's create valuable connection between people who interact as representative of this universal values. We found some interesting research on cognitive dissonance, which promote negative evaluation of outgroup, but also can be used to destabilize belief about outgroups. Then people see positive behaviors, it can be used not only to actually discard them, but actually accept that there are interesting possibilities for future cooperation. One of the key results of our research is really effect of categorization, because usually when we speak about contact theory, we speak about decategorizing. People brought together, they become friends, they act as individual, learn about each other's individual, and become friends. But the problem is when they're returning back to their communities, it doesn't apply to entire community. It's only applied to this group of people who become friends, especially for the long contact. So research shows that it's important to include new steps. Second step, mutual and group differentiation, or when we portray participants as typical for entire group or stressing out group category. So first we decategorize, make them friends, but then again represent them through specific approaches, how they are typical representative of a group. So then they go to work in communities, they now change. But the most important is creating of common or dual identity, third step. So instead of just first step of decategorizing, effective contact theory should engage in 3 steps or 3 stages of categorization. And this common identity is very important because it could be dual identity, where simultaneously activated several identities, for example, national and ethnic, or it could be gender identity and ethnic identity, or supercategorization, then one identity, common identity become only one and other identities less important. We see another very important factor is anxiety, which influence emotional responses on people, and appear to be more important link between contact and reduced prejudice. And anxiety actually more important than knowledge. Even you share and knowledge, perspective taken, if you do not reduce anxiety, which is actually also a form of threat, that it's very important to address it through equal status, give people information of in-group flexibility, reduce threat, and emotional responses. So how we can use contact theory? Now that we know all mechanisms, all processes, one of the way is reduce prejudice and create social cohesion. And how it happens and contact affect different types of prejudice in different magnitudes. It's better work, for example, for sexual minorities, but less for religious minorities. But still, there are active ways to change attitudes toward positive attitudes and cohesion. And but also in majority minority, remember we started with a whole discussion of power. For minority group members, intergroup contact become ambivalent or maybe disempowering. So attitudes, not just, we should understand these differences, that attitudes should be politically defined, that commonalities between groups should come together with understandings of injustices and inequalities. And this development of common superordinate identity should include this understanding. Another very important topic which we found, and Nadia will discuss it more in details, I just go very quickly through it, that we found strong actually opposition between research on improving relations and supporting social change. Because if you want to improve relations, that they reduce salience of difference, they prejudice reduction, produce positive relations between people, emotions. But if you want to promote social change, you actually have to stress the difference. You have to create negative feelings about inequality. And collective action, which focuses on disadvantaged group and status relations, arise with negativity toward advantaged group. So there is a very strong opposition between idea of creating positive relations and promoting social change. So, So how to deal with this issue? And we outline multiple ways. I just mentioned some of them. It's what happens, the challenges, because contact less effective, increasing advantage group awareness about inequality. It does not necessarily promote change in ideological beliefs. It's also increase minority group acceptance of bias system because you create positive contacts, and can weaken core predictors of collective action. So it's actually contact potentially contribute to stability rather than change. So what to do about it? As a suggestion of it can improve political attitudes, at the same time support for collective action. And supportive contact, that we provide specific ways to support disadvantaged group or minorities. Also, it can increase willingness to work in solidarity between people through understanding of social order as unjust. So the solutions going for minorities, it could be unification of minority, fostering solidarity, creating new collective identities, and giving perspectives. While for majority, it's perspective taking, increase motivation of them, create group-based anger of group which promote and provide and support inequality, concern for the interest of their own advantage groups, inspiration to act accordance with moral beliefs, and so on. So there are a lot of ways we found in the literature how to solve this particular issue. And also we're speaking about balanced contact, which like concentration of inequality, critical intergroup dialogue approach, which avoid using dualistic frame of disadvantaged and disadvantaged groups. And participatory design is also a very important way. There, through intervention, people build trust, create discussion of privileges, discussion of disadvantages, but also give opportunities to bring their own perspective, their own construction of contact and contact condition. So it's not like we're bringing people together. You first work with each group to decide, to design the contact, and then work with groups to continue design the contact before contact actually exists. This critical intergroup dialogue, it's very important where power relations explicitly addressed. For polarization, it's also very important. Now we see more and more contact is used for addressing polarization and reducing polarization in societies. And one of the ways to do deliberations, the interest among the participants in the topic, increase empathy toward other groups, and create the storytelling with both perspective taken and perspective given. But we also see very interesting approach of cross-cutting exposure. Then first, people know each other as individuals and then start recognizing them as representative of different political groups. Then they create more empathy and more possibility to hear each other. And of course, the contacts, these forms of indirect contacts, which I discussed in the beginning. For resilience, it's very important because contact with institutions and local authorities really increase resilience, especially if communities able to give feedback for institutions and local authorities. Social networks are extremely important for creating resilience, and social capital through collective actions, through social events, really have opportunity for create opportunity for stronger community resilience through horizontal capitals, through between groups, vertical capital between different groups of societies, bonding social capital with people with the shared identity, and bridging capital between groups. And we also see that collective efficacy clearly depends, and decision-making depends on contact theory. And finally, speaking about scaling up, we see that there are different ways how contact can be scaled up in society. It can include bigger groups, but it's also can create more connection within small communities and also connect the small community to specific structural issues in society. We also see recreation of local initiatives. We see producing more similar projects around similar communities. There are multiple pathways where people work with policy making, implementation, sharing lessons learned with other groups. And also it's work through increasing the deliberative capacity of citizens, their ability to actively engage in decision making and become active agents of change. So I will stop sharing here, and I will give opportunity for our members of our team to provide their comments and reflections. Susan, can we start with you?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much, Karina. Every time I hear you make such a summary synthesis of all the literature, I really feel inspired by how useful this theory work is for practical stuff. And so I just want to say for a few minutes about contact theory. If you're focused on practice, why study contact theory? And I want to emphasize some of the real clear implications for practice from this theoretical work. So I come from a background of many years of practice with contact programs, whether it's youth engaging with youth across some divides, or adults, track 2 diplomacy, people-to-people diplomacy, etc. And so when I, read the contact theory literature and see these, all these the concepts that come out of it and the insights, I can see a lot of relevance to that, explicit contact theory work. But I also think practitioners who are working in other areas will find this useful too, because we've got, as I was thinking about what to talk about today, reading the Washington Post this weekend, we have so many stories in there that relate in some way to contact theory. So there's the story of a South Carolina teacher who was teaching a Ta-Nehisi Coates book, Between the World and Me, in an AP English class, and got a big reaction. And this relates in a sense to the indirect contact that Karina was describing, and the reaction of majority can be negative, and they can choose to withdraw from contact when they find their own status is under threat. In this case, that the students complained about feeling uncomfortable learning about white privilege. Another example from the Washington Post this weekend is Maya Soyatoro, who does storytelling books for young people to explicitly try to tell them about the narratives of others, so that they may be growing up without direct access to learning about others, but indirectly they learn through the storytelling books. So even the indirect contact, I think, is all around us. And then finally, the concept of participatory design and the way that can really strengthen contact theory programs is also something that I think in a lot of different forms of practice, we can see ways that participatory design helps build people's buy-in, build people's commitment to whatever form the process takes. So yeah, I don't want to talk too long because I know we want to save a lot of time for others, but just to kind of present the idea that all of these concepts can be really helpful in framing discussions with groups, in trying to create a participatory design process, be able to put out these concepts and look at what ways do people want to engage, and not to use the concepts and the theories to blind us to the intricacies and nuance of a particular context, but rather to use that to help us focus and ask questions about the contexts where we're working. So I'm excited for the next stage of this project, which will be building from the literature review, engaging with practitioners and interviews with practitioners, engaging with projects, and doing review of project documents, and then engaging with projects and doing some, quasi-experimental design work with some particular contact theory projects, and doing some participatory action research with some projects as well. So with that, I'll pause, Karina, and turn it back to you.
Yes, thank you very much. And yes, and we will maybe at the end also tell that we actually in the middle of already, Beltina already conducted 25 interviews, and we already in the middle of analyzing 35. It's 35 projects. Yeah, so we now see, and it's very interesting for us to observe, and I want team members to reflect on that. It's very interesting to observe how some literature ideas are widely known and everyone is speaking about them and projects are involved with them. But there are so many very interesting, very significant research which are not implemented at all. And this was really striking for our team. And maybe I want to hear maybe more reflection from the team on that. Nadia?
Thank you, Karina, for the presentation. As Susan also noted, it's always, even though we all worked about this literature review, I usually find some kind of new nuances when I hear this combined presentation. I wanted, the first comment I want to make, I just want to emphasize how important this project is, because contact theory is as Susan noted, reflecting on the Washington Post, we use it every day, so it's a very common thing to use, and especially in the practice, in the academia, and we are not very well aware of the complexity of the process that sometimes lead to frustration, because people you might assume that the contact is a simple thing, like bringing people together and creating this positive environment for communication, and then things happen, the things change immediately, but it does not work like that. So there is a lot of details and complexity that we need to pay attention to. And the another thing why I like this project is that it actually combines two fields. One is this peace conflict studies, all these basically the field that contact theory is used a lot, and the another one is the democracy, human rights, and governance, which is also very important, and maybe contact is not used there as often or as purposefully as in the other field. I wanted to actually comment on the social change collective action part that you also mentioned. The slides that you presented had almost all details there, but one of the very the first thing that was really striking to me was that part, actually, when I studied that collective action and social change part, and I was really surprised, because I was reading the articles after articles, and each and every one of them were concluding that there is no direct correlation from contact, even if it is positive, sustained, and good, and then it does not necessarily lead to collective change and collective action and social change, and all this complexity between the advantaged so-called minority and majority, or disadvantaged advantaged groups, and how you bring them into the contact and communication, that at the end of this process you actually have a collective some collective change action that has the social change in mind. And you already point out that for example, very interesting point for me was that this concept of individual mobility, when some members of the minority group, when they engaged in the sustained contact with the so-called majority, they themselves change the approach and the perception of how the system works. And then this individual mobility is that their position changes, not necessarily their group's position, but their own position changes, improves, and they kind of adapt this reality. And then how you motivate the advantaged groups not only engage in the contact, and you don't create this environment that is a kind of blaming and shaming environment for them, but that actually leads some profound changes, like policy changes even. So all of this work was really fascinating. And every time I would share this with the colleagues who are in practice and using contact, and they do not see necessarily these collective actions, that as much as they would like to see, there would be the explanation why, and then there would be the sort of suggestions what you could do differently, and what are the details that you pay attention that actually leads to the change that you want to see. So I think this is a really great project that definitely has this theory practice, bridging the theory and practice in a very real way. So I'm also very excited to see what's coming up as there are some more exciting work happening from the practice perspective.
Thank you, Natia. And Natia also is a member of our advisory board. We have actually, our project has 20 practitioners from all over the world. We're really happy that we have every continent represented. And these people who work as a practitioners using the theory. And we always present our research for them. Early stages, like late stages, always get feedback from them and create. And this literature review, again, that we're representing right now, also those who are really interested to read about it, we will be working on a book which will be a part of our third year work, where it will be several chapters of book exactly on theory, and also analysis of interviews, analysis of projects, and we will start a new stage very soon. We'll speak about it in the end. The next stage, we will be analyzing projects. Susan already told about it, and we'll just bring it. So, Belle?
Thank you, Karina. Hi, everyone. So I think this project is, I think when Mike and Karina were trying to do a proposal for it, I was just very excited. Just it's quite an area that I don't really have so much experiences in terms of governance, human rights, and issues. But as I started to get involved, I just saw, just like Susan and Natia here are saying, and how Karina eloquently said earlier, it's just part of everyday life. You can actually see it come alive, I think, when you just take a moment and realize how it works. Although we do understand, and this has come up so many times already, we do understand that there's quite a gap between the theory and the practice. But actually, that's also the reason why this is all that much more interesting. So we look at the theory, which, you know, in and of itself, it's not quite, you know, made up stuff, right? It does have its evidence. But then, as Karina mentioned, I've been doing the interviews, and then we speak with the practitioners in these areas, and it's just so fascinating. They have really deep insights into contact theory, and it makes you and it makes you really I think it does a few different things in terms of what comes out from these conversations. One of them being, it's not necessarily a divide between theory and practice, but actually sometimes it does support the theory, right? It just advances to a new understanding, perhaps. And then on the other hand, it's of course super useful for practice. What do we do, right? How can we design a project or program that would help bring these two or more particular groups together? On the other hand, I also see it recently. It made me realize that it very much applies to my dissertation project. So I'm looking at immigration in Italy, and I know that immigration, hot topic, right? No matter what region of the world you're thinking of when you think of immigration issues, it really is something that's very important, very current, and it needs our attention. And when I started getting involved in this project, it made me realize that so much of the coming together activities or events that are out there when it comes to immigration, it always seems to be so-called top-down. Well, I should say like high-level approaches, meaning that it's always policy experts coming together, heads of states coming together, some kind of leaders coming together, right? And it just made me wonder, which is something that I'm excited to work with Karina next in terms of my dissertation, is that, hey, were migrants ever included in any of these conferences, in any of these coming together? And it seems that doing a bit of research, right, not forgetting the theory there, but doing a bit of research seems like not really, right? So how can we bring these two groups together? And in my case, I find that particularly important because policymakers are throwing, refugees in jails. They are treating overall migrants as criminals. And as a migrant myself from Italy, that is something that I'm committed to. And so contact theory is really, I really think you can use it so many ways because it's just out there and it's for you to, I think, play with it too. Yeah, you can do so many different things with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan, do you want to add something, or we open it for the question?
Yeah, I think we can turn to questions. Do you want me to moderate to see?
Yeah,
if people could raise your hands, please, if you want to make a comment or ask a question, and we'll take several.
And again, just wanted to show while we're waiting for your questions, it's interesting about indirect contact, because this session, all four of us are in completely different places. Susan in DC, I am in York, England, Natia is in Massachusetts, Biltina is in South Carolina, and Mike is in Tunisia. So this is how still contact work to bring us together.
Let's hear from Isabella, please.
Hi, good morning. First of all, thank you all for the presentations and all the knowledge and information. My question surrounds like the first steps of contact theory, kind of like how to get people from like to decide to start contact theory in the first place, like to engage in seeing the person from the other group. Like how do, like even if it's being like before the first steps of contact theory, like how would you all see that vision of those, like of that initiation?
Great question. Karina, do you want me to gather a few, or do you want to just address that one?
Yeah, we can address all together. I will address it from perspective what we explored in contact theory, but also from my own perspective and experience, and I'm sure all our members can also bring. Usually, contact itself is not the reason. It's also the reason why we are doing it. So we call theory of change. If I bring people together, then we will reduce polarization. If we bring women together from two ethnic groups, they will create new bridges through understanding. If we bring majority and minority together, we will be able to address issue of inequality in particular way. So these theories of change are very important, and they call theories of change, but they basically explain mechanism. If we do in some particular way, bringing people together, then we'll achieve results. And as you saw from this presentation, there are multiple ways how contact theory can help and bring change to society through reduction of prejudice, to creating collective actions, to creating society, community resilience, and so on. So contact itself without theory of change will not be effective, if this will be my conclusion. But Susan and Nati and Belle, if you want to answer.
No, I think that was well put. Yeah, people come to come for contact for a reason. They have to have a reason that they think that contact will help them. Yeah.
And I can give an example, Isabella, if that helps as well. So like, for example, like Karina said, saying simply on, just bringing groups together is not really the main stated reason, let's say. But for example, you could bring farmers together so that maybe you want to instill some kind of training so that they're able to mitigate conflict. So conflict resolution or conflict facilitation skills, let's say. And you do that because you've maybe you've done or you realized that there's some lots of conflict between farmers, and you see it affecting different situations in that particular community. Whereas on the other hand, in context, let's say like Colombia, which has been, in the verge of of so much, violence and war and armed groups operating for so long, that interventions are kind of, bringing people together in that context it's kind of hard, because there are so many projects and programs out there that do that, and so people, it's really hard to bring them in, right, into a classroom or into an event of some sort. So you really, probably in that context, you have to be a bit more of mapping. So what is already out there, and how could you, what is the proposition there to offer to people to really walk in and come to you?
Thanks, Belle. Let's go to Colonel Pratt.
Thank you for the presentation. This is fascinating. And I wanted to ask whether you think it would be beyond the scope of the project to explore something that we all know is out there, and that is, bad actors. Those, especially those who benefit from the tension and conflict between groups, and just, how do you assess, the best mechanism or method for creating the contact based on the activity or the influence of bad actors?
Karina, you want to address that?
Again, with the contact, remember there is a 4 major conditions, right? And like classic conditions. And one of them is pleasant contact. And another one is support for authorities. And of course, another one is cooperation. So there are 4 conditions which very rarely work together. But cooperation was proved as being one of the best, and pleasant contact. So with the spoilers or bad parties, it's probably need a lot of preparation stages before we go into indirect contact. That's why I think that presentation, as I started specifically, was idea that you can do a lot of forms, and I presented 3 forms of indirect contact. And you can also create sometimes online contact just with text, which could bring or at least reduce the threat. Remember, we discussed the mechanism of reduction of the threat, which is very important in this. So I think it should, and it's also should be participatory design in developing it. So it's possible. It's just a lot of things which we presented today have to be put in design and reflected to be able to bring spoilers on bad parties together with those who are affected by them. It's possible, but require much better design. And I don't know, Susan, do you want?
Yeah, I think also I'll just add that in practice, there's an idea that, you know, sometimes there can be an intergroup contact between not the spoilers, right? The folks who want to be part of intergroup contact, and they can then create an identity of we are different from those spoilers. And then we're going to strategize how to help shift the approaches of the spoilers. So there, you know, when there are spoilers, sometimes there will be people on both sides of a divide who want to address, you know, those spoilers and the other ones too. And so building kind of a peace constituency through that contact can then help with strategizing. I think we have Ashton, if I can ask you to wait for a moment, we've got a question in the chat that is from Lynette. And Lynette asks, has our research found references to the impact of intergroup helping on the contact or harming it? For instance, if a minority group perceives it negatively. So you've got two groups in contact, and one group, perhaps more advantaged group, is helping the other group. Have we found any of that in the literature we've looked at, Karina?
Yes, but also what is become more and more aware about it is scholars, but also practitioners, that empowerment of minority, it's also very important, and bringing together several minorities to work together on issues which are similar to them become more and more often more usual part of engagement in this case, before actually these minorities will work with majority. So again, as Nadia told, and like then I was also represented, there are a lot of tension between creating collective action, including majority and minority, and ability of them to create positive contact, because it's completely opposite mechanisms work there. So it should be carefully designed critical approach, which still create a lot of resistance from majority, and or for minority create for more acceptance of social order. So this is what is important to address justice, but also create mutual gains. It's extremely important through small design, maybe indirect contacts, through working with small group of majorities to create ideas how it could be work to mutual beneficial ideas rather than just addressing inequality, unfortunately, because in this case we'll see a lot of majority resistance. At the same time, again, as if you bring several minorities together and empower them in working and producing, there are a lot of projects that minority brought together different ethnic groups or youth and women brought together to speak about the experiences and how they can work together, and then bring majority to this coalition, that they will feel more symmetric in this relationship.
Thank you, Karina, and thank you for that great question. Let me go then to Ashton.
See and hear me. I just stopped my treadmill so I could be not winded while I talk to you. Thanks for that presentation. I'm not sure if how my question is going to land, so take it in whichever way you see fit. But I've spent a little bit of time in the urban peace building literature, and one of the things that's interesting about that is that there are a lot of unstructured episodes of contact, particularly in urban areas where folks are, getting their groceries or getting on the bus, they're taking their kids to the park, And it seems like a lot of the contact theory that has been supported in the research is much more kind of strictly adhering to the original conditions of Alport's theory in terms of working towards a common goal and being supported by institutions and that sort of thing. So how do you think about contact theory when you're considering all of these unstructured and kind of spontaneous interactions with folks, particularly when they're in an urban environment and or recovering from a conflict of some sort?
This is a very good question, Ashton. By the way, sorry, I wanted to say, Lunette, hi. I did not see you, but always happy to see our Maltese students. And so, but Ashton, returning back to the question. So we actually specifically excluded this literature. We had, and like, I know that Natia and Susan and Hero, who were doing a lot of research on it. Hero specifically done a lot of research on this part. There are a lot of research, they called it contact, but it's not it's everyday encounter, basically, right? It's very simple form of situational encounter, which is not specifically designed. What we explore in this project is a project where context is designed to bring group together in meaningful way and produce meaningful impact. But as I told you, this simple encounters, positive encounters, if they're positive, have a impact on increased positive attitude, tolerance, social cohesion, if minorities are small, until like 20%. If they're bigger and the more gentrification happening or more different groups coming together, if social boundary change is percentage of population change, it actually can be very, very negative, research shows. But again, we didn't concentrate on that because it was, it's not something which consider peace building activity. What you can do, you can actually use it, and this is a lot of projects do use it in very beginning. This is storytelling. What does it mean? This is what Van Dijk started with the whole discourse analysis of idea, tell the story how you meet with immigrants in Holland, right? So the whole discursive analysis idea was part of this, how we create stories, how we discursively create idea of immigration and our position. So it could be very important part, addressing it can be very important part of the design of contact, but it's not something which can meaningfully lead to change.
And if I could add to that, Ashton, I think you have a unique ability to bridge between like the urban planning experience where there are, specific conscious choices made to, let people, connect, whether it's, in this park or the walkable place or the whatever, and the peace building literature. And so, I think that our project is not doing that. We're not going from these explicit contact designed programs to, the broader informal kinds of contact that you're talking about. But I think that would be an interesting kind of bridge to build between, what have we found collectively, what has the field found in these explicit formal contact programs, and what have urban planners found in creating these places for informal interaction. And I know from my own lived experience, I've spent 20 years now living in a co-housing community, which was specifically designed to create these informal interactions. And it kind of works. I know my neighbors, so. Any other questions, comments? Let's see if you want to raise your hand or put something in the chat, or go ahead, Karina.
Yeah, but while we wait, and I just want to return to Ashton's question about the, for example, what we found, and myself conducted research on urban resilience among disadvantaged communities in urban settings, Washington, D.C. And contact was very important part of designed contact. Then people from different communities were coming together to discuss collective governance, or people from this like cross-cutting bridging capital, development of bridging capital, but also different groups in community come together for community planning and discussion of community meetings. This was very important design contact which help communities to actually, which suffer from continued gentrification, but also from disregard of a lot of their needs by the government.
Okay, so we've got some stuff going on in the chat there. Hello to folks. Colonel, you've got some good friends online here. Nice to meet you all. Oh. Okay, so do we want to then go to maybe just some closing comments?
Yeah, so yeah, we have 10 minutes, and maybe we should tell a little bit where we're going next with the project. I will start few, and then I will ask Susan and Belle to give more. So the project have multiple stages. So we will be presenting our second stage in the spring, so please join us, those who want. The second stage will be very exciting because we will be presenting results of 25 interviews and 35 projects analysis, specifically what actually happening, what tools people are using, what theories of change people are using, for what particular communities, which tools working better, what particular form of contact better for particular outcome. So this is what we do in analysis, but we also marinate with theory to see what is actually from theory implemented, what still need a lot of popularization and ideas, what could be done. And then this will be presented in the spring, but also our next stage will start in October. We will be doing also research with particular projects, which are ongoing contact theories, and we will try to implement different types of experimental design, quasi-experimental design, and participatory evaluation approaches to see how we can close the gaps in the knowledge and in practitioners' lessons learned through this particular research. So Susan and Belle, you want to add?
Oh, what a pleasure to kind of take this moment to pause and present where we are now with the project. And I look forward to the next stages. And thank you, Karina, for your leadership on this.
Belle, Natia.
Yeah, I guess we can't really give so many details now, but I guess take our word for it. It's just very, like I mentioned earlier, the interviews and the project that we're looking at, there's just so much richness there that we're hoping to do some of the things that Karina said and much more. We also have participatory action research led by Susan as well. So it's just these different moving parts that we're hoping to present to you next semester, maybe with the next Peace Week or something of the sort. Yeah.
I don't have to add much. I'm happy to be part of this process. I'm very excited to see how theory and practice talks to each other, like with this contact theory. So, and it's an exciting project, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more information and a lot more nuances that will be helpful for practitioners, for project planning, and also for policy relevance. I think I see there some policy relevant findings also.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we will conclude here. And we also have two more faculties which helping us, addressing us. We have Mark Gopin and we have Jeff Helsing, who are our consultants on our project and help us a lot. And especially they will be extremely helpful to us, and we will be going for our third year when we will be working together with practitioners and with donors on how to actually popularize everything, how to do translation of everything we do. Like now it's called translational sciences, how we can translate everything which we learn into more specific, into more effective ways of conflict resolution. Again, thank you for all this wonderful team which we have here represented, and thank you for everyone who come together for your interest. Continue, if you're interested, continue following us. We will be having another session this week in the spring.